And today we're launching the Kenya chapter of this movement, and it stands for really empowering communities everywhere to successfully take charge of their own development. This gives a unique opportunity for Kenya to really represent a beacon of hope to all of Africa. What can decentralization provide in terms of unleashing the productivity and the creativity of people who have maybe been marginalized for a long, long time? Well, there are 10 organizations that have been working to organize it, and we'll see if I remember them all. The African Capacity Alliance, FHI 360, Global Communities, Heifer International, where we're hosting today's event, the Johanniter, the KCDF, Nuru International, and VAP, and VitoCap. So these 10 organizations have been working really for the past year to reach this point. But we shared a frustration with the prevailing top-down bureaucratic approach to development. So we launched this movement to move the role of communities to the forefront of the development agenda internationally, but also nationally. We form chapters in each country to really push for coordinated action and support voice and agency for people in every single community in the nation. I intend to make a model for the world. Everyone should know that not only has it been done in Kenya, but despite naysayers, it has been successful in Kenya. And so we have brought people from other East African countries here. They want to drag probably their finance ministers to Kenya to learn how it's done. But this is something we think is the only way to achieve sustainable development.
I think this is really a great initiative to create the Kenyan chapter of community-led development. And I'm sure the fact that now people are organized together, to be organized together, to share experiences, to encourage each other, this will even give more impetus to the development of community-led initiatives.
And we have a panel. So we have, so John will talk to the audience a bit about community-led development, and then we have an area chief from Turkana. Turkana, to be honest, is one of the counties that has really benefited significantly, and certainly would attest as well to devolution. So he will be talking about how his county, how his community, has benefited, and how they're approaching community-led development. He has an excellent story. And then we will have a panel discussion.
There have been a struggle between modern top-down bureaucratic government and the traditional strengths of communities. And there have been organizations like the NAM movement, like the Rural Reconstruction movement, like Sarvodia and Shramadana, people's movements to regain that dignity and that strength. And we often celebrate the cultural and rich traditions, but Africa also possesses these great traditions of collective action for self-help. That is one of the great developmental strengths of Africa that is often not done well with modern governments, particularly the colonial period and the immediate post-colonial period left people feeling marginalized, feeling ignored, feeling dependent, and yet hopeless at the same time. So these movements created really a science of how to transform that mindset of people, how to transform the mindset of government officials to take this approach. You know, on the day that the Sustainable Development Goals were launched, Pope Francis came and spoke, and he said, okay, it's all well and good for these nations to set goals and targets. But we must remember we're talking about real women and men. And for real women and men to escape poverty, they must be the dignified authors of their own development, dignified agents of their own integral development. So that's what we stand for.
Hii muradi munatuletea, ningependa nikisimama mbele wenu kwamba hii muradi inatakikana iende kwa mwananchi, ipate maoni ya mwananchi, kwa sababu yeye ndio atapaki kufaidika na hii muradi. Wewe unaleta ukitoka, mimi nitabaki kwa hiyo shida. So msitutumie kwa kutufanyia kazi ambayo haitatusaidia. Mkuja pale usisha mimi, viongozi wote wale wako chini, kwa sababu hao watu ndio wako na ushungu ya ile shida inafanyika. Uliza mimi ile kitu nataka. Kama ni maji, itoka kwangu, kwa sababu hiyo ownership itabaki kwangu. Nikisema hii kitu ni yangu. Lakini ukuja kuifanya, alafu natoka, mimi utasema ya ile kampuni ilikuwa naitwa, na itabaki hivyo hivyo. So, kwa vile tunaongea maneno ya community land development, let it be that way. Kwa ikuja kwa mwenyewe, isaidie huu mtu. We decided kusema hivi, hii sehemu yenye tumenyang'anywa na post office, wacha tufanye clearing, tuweke mbegu ya chakula through this project. Ndio sasa mwananchi asaidike. After hii project ikirudi, tutabaki kwa hii chakula yetu. And there was a success. Tulifanya kama jamii, na implementers wetu wakawa watu wa karimu, walichukua ile maoni yetu, ikawa imefanya kazi. Kwa saa hii tuliweza kupata 300 acres ambayo tulifanya clearing. 300 acres tumepata mahali pa kupanda mimea yetu yote, watermelon, sorghum, maize na kadhalika. Ile mbegu tuko naye, dengu nini. Na tena ile post office ambayo tumefanya clearing, tumeitumia tena Shakolobani, ambaye ilitupatia shilingi 1,900, closer to a million. Kwa nini tumekuja na hiyo tumekuja na tumetumia hiyo? Alafu ile mapato tumepata kwa chamba watermelon, tukauza 250 topping ile ya Shakolobani, ambayo ilikuwa success yetu.
In connection to what the chief has said, we actually did something very wonderful. And if allowed, maybe, from a span of like 2 to 5 years, we were able to harvest watermelon in a place where we could not imagine if it can even grow. We harvested close to 1,600, I even remember the figures. And that one has resulted us even like to form or to take the community to another level of putting a cooperative so that they can manage themselves. We just help to see them grow. Otherwise, thank you very much. I want to take much of your time. Asante sana.
How can communities become the authors of their own development? How can ordinary citizens write their development story against a background of poverty, inequality, and sometimes poor governance community-led development allows us to do things that matter, or to allows communities to implement or to have projects, whether done by counties or themselves, but things that at the end of the day are addressing needs that communities identify with.
There are two ways to become a middle-income country. One is you have 3 people with all the money. My country is doing that currently. Or you have broad-based economic growth, where everyone is producing, everyone is seeing their incomes and health status and educational status rise. It's that second one that we're committed to. But there's no way to do that without, that I know of, without community-led development. Some process for people to, as the chief was saying, as you've said, set their own vision, set their own priorities, and make them a reality.
There's need to understand the needs of the community, process the needs with them, let the community identify the gaps that exist, then work together. Given that there are many experts in the community has the knowledge, and then once we've identified the gaps, worked with the community to build those gaps, and we've seen that working very well in the informal settlements that we work in the community that we work in. We've seen where you recognize and respect the decisions that the community come up with, the solutions that they come with themselves. That brings a sense of ownership and also sustainability of those initiatives that we have started together as we've worked with the community. Thank you.
So the people in the communities are already doing so much. If we can leverage on what is going on in the community, if we can recognize that whatever is happening in the community is what has sustainability, then we can all go so far. I'm glad that we're having this discussion here today. When I was introducing myself, I talked about working in 16 schools and now working in 50. So how did I start my work? I identified a need that was affecting me. And I was able, like if you ask me today what changed in me, I'm able to tell you. If you ask me about my neighbor's kid, if you ask me the number of girls who had babies around my home, I'll be able to tell you. But most development partners will look at the national statistics. So you can't know the magnitude of the problem if you don't involve the people. And you can't know the impact of your intervention if you don't know the people. So we have so much going on in the communities. Let us work together.
So what are some of the challenges of community-led development? Let me just talk about one. In my view, there is apathy. And what my dictionary tells me is that apathy means lack of interest. And in Kenya, we say, ni kazi ya serikali. Serikali saidia. We are hustlers.
All of us are worried about our existence. So are local organizations as well. And their self-perpetuation and self-sustenance becomes a key factor as opposed to actually leaving space for communities to take up leadership. And I think this can only be countered by the organization of communities. And I think for me, when you look at the example from Turkana, for example, when you look at the example from Makueni working on climate change, the organization of communities is very, very key in seeing communities lead. Unless they organize, unless they come together, unless they organize their voice, they cannot even influence. And even within that organization as a community, the women in that community have to organize themselves. So unless women can meet and organize themselves and then come up with their own agenda, they'll find it very, very difficult to influence that. And I think as practitioners, one of the challenges we'll have to face is how do we organize communities so that their voice is heard. I think the last one is the issue of funding. Again, from a power lens, the politicization of the funding of development is that INGOs get money, they give it to local organizations that give a little bit of that to the communities as well. How do we come up with innovative envelopes so that communities who want to lead on development, like the Turkana community, have access to that money without going through gatekeepers? In Makueni, for example, the climate adaptation funding that EFID managed to help us set up, and the county government committed to be putting in its own money through the CIDPs and the annual budgeting, was such that this is an envelope that is governed by the communities themselves. Of course, there's county government, there's communities, there's local leaders, there are head teachers, there are local churches, there's local civil society, but they govern the money. When they need it to do a shallow well, they're not going through any other gatekeeper. It is their money to access it in a very, very very, very easy way.
So this is something where government can directly play a role and can also be a catalyst for private sector and civil society to play a greater role. So when government sees themselves as having this power to convene and to bring other sectors together to solve shared problems, then you can see a real impact that doesn't necessarily drain the budgets of the government.
Civil society we need to play our own role in being a very good catalyst and making sure that we put the rest to task, and so that government is able to create the good environment. They are able to use our taxes very well and prudently with accountability, and then that gives or leaves a very good sufficient room for the private sector to generate wealth. And when private sector generates wealth, it means there will be more money for taxes, and there will be more money that different civil society organizations can mobilize locally and still do a bit of things and leverage. So I don't think there's need to redefine our roles and how we correlate so that we can promote more participation and more engagement.
The poor people know what they need, but we never ask them. When we will be able to move to a step where we will say, everyone has a dignity, and everyone has a voice, and everyone knows what they need. Even the madman, if you listen to the madman, he will tell you what they really need. I wish we would begin to listen to the common mwananchi and begin to develop our structures from below.
What is the place of public participation as a catalyst to community-led development?
The colonizers went, but we are yet to decolonize our mind. Yeah? To think that we can own and drive this agenda as our own, as the final beneficiary, not somebody to come and try to force it down our throat. So the decolonization of our mind first. That's what I think, sensitization. Let people create the awareness, so that this thing we are bringing, not from the donor community, is for your own benefit.
I think it's upside down. Now we have the revolution I'm supposed to celebrate. The money is literally going into a few select people's pockets. We need to wake up. Why are young Kenyans going to Somalia to blow themselves up? You need to ask yourself that. This is the reality. So tuamkeni tafadhali, the communities know their issues.
All is not lost. I think we acknowledge the system is broken and we need to fix it. I think that's why this movement is being launched. We need to go to the grassroots, and I agree with everything that you've said, including the new colonialists wearing suits. But I think for us to really move that to the communities, I think my punchline really is we need to be very, very systematic about it. My position usually is we need to strengthen the relationship between citizens and their governments and the county government. So whether you're an organization based in Marsabit or Garissa or wherever, this is a very, very huge opportunity where significant, I think it's 70% of the resources from USAID now in future, from PEPFAR at least to be specific, that is intended for local organizations. So I think for me, it's the systematic approach where the county governments, I think for me, have to play a more significant role in regulating actors, in supporting the community voices, but also being the entry point for all other actors who want to come and support communities. And if they don't want to align to that community-led development, I think for me it's an opportunity for them to shift out.
You have to engage with the community. It has to be deliberate. It has to be deliberate, and you have to back it with the strengthening the systems within the community, the structures that exist within the community. The community has even leadership structure. If we expect them to have leaders even for projects, how are we investing in the capacity building of those leaders, those communities? How will they monitor their own? Because also there are those who are in the community, but they are well off. They are likely to take advantage of the same community that is in need of the development project that is being initiated. So as partners with the community, or as people working at the grassroots level, how are we investing in ensuring that the community capacity is built so that they can be able to engage from the initial in the initial process all the way to the completion and even ownership of the same project. So we need to be deliberate. We need to build the capacity of the community so that they can take their respective roles for sustainability of the initiatives that are undertaken in the community.
And then in Kenya, we have this beautiful devolved system of government. What if we worked with such structures, like what if we are able to devolve ourselves so that if we are working internationally, then I have a Kenyan chapter, then we have maybe the county chapter, and then there may be a sub-county, and then the community, so that we are not international and still organizing women in Kibera. Who are you going to organize? Are you going to organize Jane who can speak in international platforms? You know, who are you really working with? So let's accept that these structures are already in the communities. Let's accept that they're already empowered. Let's accept that they're already organized and they understand their issues. And let's work with them to make whatever they're already doing better.
There's two words I never use. I never use the word beneficiary. It's a lie. It's the people, as Jane just said, who are doing all the work that we can stand in solidarity with. So that's a dirty word in my vocabulary. I call it the B word. I never use it. The other word I don't use is participation. You don't participate in something you own. You only, quote, participate in something somebody else owns. So if the people are owning their lives, their government, their public resources, it's theirs, and they have a right, as was mentioned, to voice and action and access to it.
Yes, and I think most of us, I would be surprised if nobody here knew who our chief guest is. He is the governor of Makueni County, and why we asked him to join us here is I think that we can, it's 7 counties, we have plenty to choose from, but if there is a model of an effort to make certain that communities are engaged, a model that we can use in other counties that we have to hold up, I think that would be Makueni County. And so I think we're very honored to have you here, Professor Juana, as Governor, Your Excellency, to talk about it, to talk about what Makueni is doing and what we can learn and what you've learned in that process.
When you look at the County Government Act, Section 174, it again says how the people must be involved in their own decision making, in their own development and so on. So there are provisions about civic education, there are provisions about public participation, even Schedule 4, the 14th function of county governments are so eloquent about the centrality of the citizen being at the center of his or our own development. So we have the infrastructure, the policy infrastructure, the legal infrastructure to actually realize what we are discussing here. Now, the women groups, they usually meet once a week, the merry-go-rounds. We call them Zangule. They say they collect some money on a weekly basis. Then they can buy a goat. When they buy a goat, they say, we'll buy a goat for so and so. Next time they collect money, we'll buy a goat for so and so. When the goat has children, then we'll give a child to so and so. Then they said also, we help each other with school fees. During the beginning of the year, we can, share the money we have, and we'll give, some fees to somebody. And of course, they have a chair, they have a secretary. They are quite organized. And we have about 3650 villages in Makueni. So there are roughly 2,500 of such women groups. So, as I kept on trying to understand their traditional life at the county, that community level life. I realized that there is a lot of it, and sometimes we think it's invisible because maybe we don't interrogate it a lot. There are funeral associations, very important, because if you don't belong to one, when you die, they don't bury you. Your family in that region, your family now will struggle to bury you alone. And some of those funeral organizations have gone to become investment groups, welfare groups. You know, they even do insurance, NHIF. They do many, many things. So the one thing that, as I listen to this very, 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 very fruitful, rich discussion, my mind therefore went to, those are the communities that you want to engage. And there are actually very, very many communities. And unfortunately, governments don't engage them. Governments don't engage them. Governments feel they don't have much to offer. They don't have much to offer. And there are clan associations. And there are many, many, many incidences of organization at that level. I have seen people like these project committees. I have seen them beginning to fund their projects, so that we do something like we do together a dam, and they begin to like build the toilet. There are still the toilets are few. They build a toilet. They save some of the money from how they sell the water. Then they build another pipeline and take the water somewhere else. So there is also that capacity to be explored of how can people also fund their projects, because that gives the dignity that we were talking about. There are also community gatekeepers. There are people who say they are, and I think you talked about them. You talked about them. Those guys who are there in the communities, and when you go there, they tell you, if you don't pass through me, that thing will not work. And you find that they are the chair of everything. The clan, the hospital, the water project, the donor project, they are chair of everything. So those are guys you know, and you must avoid them like plague, because they will not help. We still have to work more with the MPs, with the national government, so that this vision of community-led development, we accept it, all of us. Because we, as an African elite, or even a section of the elite, have governed alone with disastrous consequences for our people. It is time we recognize the other arm of government, the people's government. And I don't think this is idealism. I think it is what you do if you want to progress. From my experience of during constitution making, even as a teacher at the university, let the people who are supposed to benefit from what is to be done, let them do it. Facilitate it. You have the privilege of being a facilitator. And therefore, finally, I really support the establishment of the chapter, the COG. We support it. And we ask that when it is established, you come to COG so that you can explain to us about the chapter, and then we commit to work with you as subnational governments, so that you help our work with communities, you help devolution, you help the cause of devolution. Sometimes, like the development partners say, they prefer to work with several counties, not just one, because of the efficiency, economies of scale, and so on. Within this chapter, many of the NGOs can find the possibility of doing something like a common proposal, and then being able to use the members to be able, therefore, through the chapter, to be therefore able to get funding without everybody going alone to the development partner, and there is good access, and of course we work until the money goes into the communities. So you will change Kenya, and please believe me, your work will change our country, because if we entrench this principle of community-led development, that is how Kenya, and we build capacities with our people. We build capacities there, and they also build capacities with us, in us. I think that is probably the best way that we are going to change, to change our country and to change our continent. And I know there are more people. There are more people than just from Kenya here, and I don't myself see another route in terms of entrenching our development. And so I really thank you, all the NGOs, the community groups, and so on, and our development partners, John.